Evening. Good evening, good evening. Hello, lovely to see you. Lovely to be seen by you. My name is Desola and I am I've had an interesting couple of days, and I think you may have too. It's been disappointing. It's been sad, and then hope, right? Hope has come through somehow for me, but then there are questions. This evening I just want to talk about the recent happenings, specifically the protests and the eventualities that came out of it. And I want to look at it from a parent's perspective, because in all of it, the parent in me sees the actions of different kinds of people, because at the end of the day, they were raised by somebody. All the players, right? All the players in the movement, in the protests. The EndSARS protest is what I'm referring to, in case you were wondering. The players in the protests, the people who took responsibility for others, the people whose actions resulted in the need for these protests. So that's what I want to talk about today. I've been watching and trying to figure it out. The practitioner in me is trying to ask questions. Where is it coming from? Why are certain people behaving a certain way? Why are different people looking at the same situation and seeing different things? And the answer is simple. We're all different. Even twins raised by the same set of parents in the same home will turn out different. They're different by identity, and then they're different because of their significant emotional experiences. They're different because their upbringings will be different, their perspectives will be different, the way they see things. They can't experience the same thing the same way, exactly the same way. So we're all different. And in the scenario of the EndSARS protests and the aftermath, I saw different people doing different things, and I'm going to explain that. Now, there was a group of people whose job it was to feed other people. They're mostly young people. There were a sprinkling of adults or middle-aged people, right? But it was mostly driven by people of a certain age. And then I asked myself, why did these people see the need to feed other human beings on a regular basis? Now, you also have to look at the actions that led to the fundraising, because I followed the events quite keenly as it began. It was someone who asked a question on Twitter, who said there was going to be protests at the government house in Alausa, and someone was offering to cook for them, and then she wanted to raise money for 40,000, 50,000 naira to cook for them. And the donation started, and it grew, and it grew, and it grew, and it became the pool of funds that was so instrumental in providing healthcare, legal support for some people. It helped them to feed people, and not just protesters. They fed people in the neighborhood, right? And you ask, what drove this person to commit their time and their resources? Now, the donators on one hand, but someone was on hand, and then there was the helpline that was created so that there was a network of people who you could call and reach out to, and they would send an ambulance, they would send food, and it was amazing to see the level of cooperation that was achieved in a very short while. And so I asked myself, why did these people commit their resources to get this done? Now, that's one question. Okay, like I said, a lot of questions on my mind regarding this matter. Initially, at the beginning of all of this, why did some people feel the need to speak out and speak up and sorosuke, right? Why did they feel the need to do that? Why did they feel that they had it in them to question, laid down rules or laid down order, a system? Why? As a parent, I'm proud of the people. Hi Jane, welcome. Thank you for joining. I'm proud of the people, the children that people have labeled children who were smart enough to organize themselves and come out and say enough is enough. We're not having this anymore. You can't continue to kill people extrajudicially. You can't continue to torture people in the name of arresting them. The profiling is enough. They won't have it anymore. It is not the normal way a typical African or Nigerian young person thinks, because of the method of upbringing that is prevalent around here. It's not normal. So I was proud to see that. I was impressed to see that. To see people say no, enough is enough, and they were going to stay on the streets, and until they got what they want, they were not going to move an inch. That was impressive to me. And I want to be a parent who would raise such a child, who would say no, and this norm doesn't make sense to me. It is not beneficial to me. Therefore, I would like to ask questions. And I think you too should. You should too. You should want such a child that would question you. And how can you do this? You let them practice on you. Like I like to say, your child questioning what you've asked them to do is not defiance. No, it's not defiance. They are honing a skill. They are getting the idea of this thing you've asked me to do. Why should I do it? And if you, as the person giving this instruction so eloquently, you actually have a reason or you have an explanation, it shouldn't be difficult for you to bring it forward and say, this is why I said you should do this, so that this will happen, so that that would happen. But if you're not able to explain yourself, and if it is an ego thing, why should I explain myself to the child? Then there's a problem. And it needs attention. So back to the protest, right? And my many questions. So we've explained that the young people being able to question the norm is fantastic. And it is welcome. We can't continue to do things the same way and expect a difference, right? And a few cannot prosper at the expense of the majority. It's abnormal. It's an abnormal way of doing things, and it's not sustainable. So the fact that they questioned the system is awesome, and it should be encouraged. It should be encouraged. In our little spaces, when a young person, a child, says why, give them an explanation. If you don't have an explanation, seek an explanation. If you are of the school of thought, that's how we've been doing it, therefore, so that we have to do it that way so that we can get this particular result, you should ask yourself, shouldn't you want better? Is there a faster, cheaper, more efficient, more effective way of getting this thing done? And if this child is questioning it, it should help you question yourself. As a parent, as a caregiver, as someone who is responsible for a child. So that question is by the side. Now, again, why did some people feel responsible for others? Why did they feel so altruistic? Why did they feel so generous to give their time and their resources? It is amazing what they were able to achieve. I'm still talking on the positives because I want to dwell on that. I want us as parents to appreciate the effort that someone put into these young people that made them give themselves like that to a cause, to an idea. It is, the organization was stellar, really. It was amazing to see. Other than donating, a lot of people didn't do much, right? But there were forces behind the scene that was getting things done. People were getting, lawyers were volunteering their time, getting people out of jail. People who were arrested, of course, as usual, arrested without cause, getting people out of jail. I read a report of a lawyer who said that they were able to get 27 people out of a particular police station just by asking what evidence the police had against them. So that tells you the degree to which things are wrong. The police just pick somebody up without cause, without any explanation. The person is not given a right to fair hearing. There's even no hearing. It's when there's hearing that it will be fair. There's no hearing. The person can't even call their parents or anybody, let them know where they are. And then this lawyer leaves whatever it is he could have been doing and helps to set these people free. And they did this consistently for 2 weeks plus. It is amazing to me as a parent. I want to be the parent of that person who does something for somebody for nothing, who does something for another person without expecting anything in return. It is remarkable to me. And I think that the parents of these children, I call them children now because we're discussing parenting. Please don't come for me. I'm not referring to young people as children because I'm old or whatever. I'm just saying that as a parent, the child that can give another child their snack or their time to explain something and they don't expect anything in return is amazing. The people that raised these people should be commended for it. Whatever it is that has been put inside them, for them to be so giving of themselves, it should be a challenge to the rest of us. Because of the cares of life and responsibilities, a number of us feel that if I'm going to do something for another person, what's in it for me is the first question. It shouldn't be. It's an abnormal system. Again, what's in it for you? How about you are just kind for being kind? How about you're good for being good? Do you have to get something out of every time you put in your effort? Do you have to get a reward? No. Because people have done things for you in the past without expecting anything in return. If you don't keep the circle rolling, then it will stop at some point. And you don't want a cycle of good to stop and end with you. And you want to raise that child. And how do you do this? You be that person. You be that person to that child. When they are helpless, we feel inclined to do things for them. And then there's a balance to this. You don't want to do something that your child is able to do for themselves, for them, such that they are incapacitated or they practice learned helplessness, right? But you want your child to see and know and understand that you can do something for someone without expecting any reward by you doing it. Another way you can do this is encourage them to give. Encourage your child to give. When their toys when they're getting older than their toys, encourage them to put it together and give. In our system, there's really no opportunity. Well, I don't know of opportunities for you to go somewhere and serve, maybe a soup kitchen and all of that. When you volunteer your time, people look at you funny because we're not used to it. I remember asking a hospital who had just opened a location near my place. I wrote a letter. I had just left my job and I had some free time, and they were open, and I thought, oh, this is a fantastic it was a fertility clinic. So I thought, wow, this is good. People would get some help, people who want to have babies. So I went there and I sent an email and I asked if I could volunteer for them a couple of hours a week. I don't know. I told them my competencies and whatever capacity they wanted to use me in. I offered myself. They didn't know what I was talking about. It was a hospital. Yes, a hospital. They literally replied me and said there is no room for that in their organization. And I thought to myself, I was offering my time. So it's not common, but you can make it happen. You can do something in your house and have your children take it to their neighbors or something, or give it away, or take them out with you. If you are involved in an NGO, don't shield your children from that. Take them with you. Let them be involved in the outreach. Talk to them. Let them know that it is good to give. It is good to offer yourself offer your services, offer what you have, right? Especially for nothing. It's important to let them know that when you are giving, you're not supposed to want something right back in return, because we have to keep the cycle of good going. And these children demonstrated this in these in the protest, and it was wonderful to see. I want to be the parent who will raise such a child that is giving, right? A child that is giving, a child that will not hold on to, will not say it's mine, I won't share. No. And like I said, we have to model this. We have to show them. We have to do things for them and let them know, right, that you're doing this for them because you love them, and they don't have to do anything back. When they are younger, it might be straightforward to say it's good to share, but once they start getting older and more aware, you have to reiterate it. Take them along, encourage them to give, right? Encourage them to give. That's something else I learned from the SARS protest. Now let me quickly go to the other side, the negative time to destroy property. Somebody didn't teach them value. Somebody skipped that lesson, right? The person didn't teach them the value of things, because if you have an idea of value, you won't look at a whole building and burn it down. Somebody also didn't teach them to contain and control their emotions. This is something we have to do in our children. You don't discount it and say, it's a child, so when they're angry, they throw things. You have to correct that. The earlier, the better. And I'm not an advocate of spanking. I don't think it's effective, so I don't subscribe to the smack on the finger. I don't. Especially when the child is not able to understand why you're doing it. Now you tell yourself the child would associate it. They might not. But then I don't think you have to cause a person pain. I think you just have to reiterate it. Take that object away. Take that item away from them, right? So that they don't throw. But to normalize an expression of violence, because violence is in grades, yes, but at the basic level, it's still violence. To normalize that and say the child is just upset. So when they're upset, they throw, or when they're upset, they throw their food away. No, you have to correct that. Because these people that went on rampage, thank you everyone that just joined. Let me just quickly say my conversation today is based on the EndSARS protest. The protest itself, the idea behind it, and then the aftermath, right? So now I'm talking about people that went on rampage, burning and destroying stuff. No. That is the way they could express their frustration. And that's valid, right? But we have to make sure that our children know better. We have to teach our children dialogue. Another reason why I don't subscribe to violence is when you hit children, you can't tell them this hitting is okay hitting. This other hitting is not okay. So when they hit each other, when they smack each other, you now say, no, don't beat your sister. But you beat her now, or you beat him. So when you beat him, you now say he should not beat his brother, or he should not beat his sister. How is that supposed to work? You can't dissociate it now. So it is better to make it a no. We don't hit. We don't tolerate any form of violence. What I tell my children is keep your hands to yourself. You can't even touch somebody in a friendly way without their consent, because I have boys and I'm trying to teach them consent very, very early. So I don't have funny conversations. So it is abnormal for you to put your hands on another person without checking with them first. So definitely hitting is not tolerated. It's not. And how can I tell them hitting is not tolerated? I don't hit them. We don't. My husband and I, we don't. We've unlearned it. We were not always that way, but we've unlearned it, because you can't dissociate it. You can't separate it now. Once you have put them in that position where they receive occasional touch-ups, talking about spanking, you can't now say, don't do this when you're outside, when you're at school, when you're upset, don't use your fists. Which is something that the people who went on a destruction spree were not taught. We don't want to make that mistake. We want to make sure our children understand dialogue, understand communication, right? How do we do this? We show them. We be that person to them. When they've done something wrong, we have a conversation. We don't go off. I know it can be a test sometimes with children, but you have to make sure that going off is fewer and far between, and conversations are more. As they are maturing, you need to mature too. You need to grow. You need to be able to rein in and handle your emotions as a parent. Something else that they did on the negative side was the fact that some people were bought over by some other people. From all indications, there are suggestions of a sabotage, right? And some people were paid to do those things. Some people were paid to disrupt the protest. And then you now ask, what is the value of their integrity as people? What is the value of their integrity? You want to teach your child that their word should not be for sale. You want to let them know that once they say yes, their yes is yes. And if it is based on principle, they should stand by what they believe in. Someone should not come and sway them to the left or sway them to the right. No. You can teach your child that. To have integrity, to have character. Right? If you're able to teach your child that, then you don't have to worry as an adult whether when they enter politics, they would be hoarding Indomie. You don't have to worry about that. If you have done the job when you need to do it, you don't need to worry about whether your child will hoard gifts, hoard palliatives and hand it out as gifts. You don't have to worry about your child's sense of worth, which is reflected in their character. Because if you value yourself and you have a strong self-esteem, then your character will not be for sale. So this is something else that the people that went on a destruction spree did. Something that there are indications of, that they were paid by certain people. Now those people that paid them too, no character. No character. So you want to ensure that your child has character. And how? Be that person. When you say yes, let your yes be yes. When you say no, let your no be no. Let your child not suspect you of hanky-panky. That's a good way to put it. Let them know that this person is a pillar. This parent is truthful and they are honest. And then obviously you don't want to have things around you that would make your child question your integrity. You don't want to do things that your child would question your standing, your character. So how do you treat your significant other in the presence of your children? Even when they are not there, they know. They sense it. How do you treat your significant other? It's important. It's part of character. Are you polite? Are you kind? Do you talk gently, peaceably, or your voice? Or like my mentor likes to say, are you the lion of the tribe of Judah of your house? Do you, when you come back, does everyone clear out? That doesn't send a note of character to anybody. That just says a tyrant is in town. Right? Can they reason with you? Can you be reasoned with? Can you be negotiated with? Your children are watching, they are learning. If you are one-way traffic, you are not even open to a different perspective. You're telling your child that it's okay for them to act like that. And then when they do, you punish them. So they are confused. And then the child is wondering, we don't understand. So you have to have a balance. And you should practice values-based parenting. So if it is based on a value, then there's a principle behind it. So when the child says, why are you asking me to do this? You can say that this is why, because there's a reason. And you are consistent. When you are practicing values-based parenting, you are consistent because those values don't change, right? They are set in concrete. They are values. They don't change. So when you have values, whatever your child does that agrees with those values would agree with you. What they do that doesn't agree with those values will not agree with you. So you're consistent. You're able to say, no, you don't do that. We don't practice violence, for instance. We are at peace, right, with everybody. So we show love. So whatever does not agree with love, then you don't do it. That's me trying to explain it now. Whatever does not agree with showing love to another person, whether in communication, whether in even how you carry on around the house, how you serve each other, love would show if it is a value. If they do something that does not display that value, then you correct it and you are consistent. So that is why you should have values. I've talked about family values before. You need to decide on what family values you want your child to grow up with. So if you're saying integrity, if you're saying honesty, you have to be that person. That's the first thing. Secondly, you have to be consistent, such that at the end of, I talk about the love time perspective. The person who takes the furthest time into consideration gets better results. So I like to say, as a 30-year-old daughter, a 30-year-old son of yours, what would you like to see in them? Decide on those values and start teaching them now. Be that person and start instilling it in them now, so that you don't do what you're supposed to do now in 30 years. Right? The law of time perspective. So I think I've talked about 2 positives, 2 negatives, right? But in all, my heart goes out to everyone who has lost somebody, who has lost a child, a relative, in this whole debacle. It was avoidable and it's unfortunate, but the sacrifice by God's grace will not be in vain. I hope and I pray that things will turn around for Nigeria, for us as a country. We can't continue along this path. Something has to give, and by God's grace it will give. And we would be the ones to birth this change and to sustain it. Okay, we're not birthing the change, the younger people are, but we will sustain it. We will not drag it down. We will contribute positively to this change. I thank you so much for watching this evening, and if there are any questions, please send me a DM. Maybe we can discuss it in the next session. Thank you so much. God bless you. Have a good evening. Bye.